Before we get into this episode of the Hampson Hockey Podcast, I just wanted to share a little story that I've seen here in the Cardiff hockey scene. If you're around the Cardiff hockey scene, you probably know of Gareth Dixon, longtime player in the Cardiff Devils ENL system and also played for the Cardiff Fire as well. In January, him and his wife Kelly had a son by the name of Benjamin. He was born with complications and sadly he lost his life on the 9th of April. His older brother Sam, who's 4 years old, wanted to do something in his memory. He was going to walk 5 kilometers a day, try and raise money for 2 of the charities that helped out his brother during his short life, Skips and the Wales Air Ambulance charity. I'll put the link to the donation page down below. But what he's been doing is walking 5 kilometers a day, and he wanted to raise £500. Right now, at the time I'm recording this, he's raised £10,350.75. If you add gift aid, that's £12,613.44. I'll put the link to the donation page down below. If you can give anything, please do so for what is a heroic accomplishment by a 4-year-old boy called Sam, a truly inspirational child. I thought I'd mention that before we get into this episode. Welcome back to the Hampson on Hockey Podcast, as always presented by ChasingThePuck.com, your home for UK hockey news, views and opinions. It's been a while, a month to be precise, since I last recorded a podcast. That last one was an interview with EIHL and IIHF official James Irons. Really well received, so thank you very much for all your feedback. If you're listening or watching this is the first one I'm actually going to film, then you'll have seen in the title exactly what I'm going to discuss today. After taking a much needed break out of doing these podcasts, I feel a bit more enthused, a bit more energetic about doing them, so we're going to roll with them. If you are watching it as well, I know that the hat isn't exactly the most professional look, but I think given the times right now, everyone's hair is looking a little bit weird. Mine, I haven't shaved my head yet because, to be honest, I'm going like my dad. I'm going bald, so I don't want to shave it off because I also don't know if it'll grow back. So so we'll go into a couple of things in this episode. It might end up being quite a long one. There's news to report and there's a rumour to discuss. So we will start with the news, and that is coming out of the Champions Hockey League. A new format for the upcoming season. Instead of there being a group stage and then a knockout round, we're just going straight into the knockout rounds. Penciled in at the moment for October 6th instead of September 3rd. No group stage, straight into knockout competition, 32 teams still, and they're all heading towards the final on February 9th. So the way it's going to work is just going to be a round of 32 straight up, 2-leg events all the way up to the semi-final, 1 leg in the final. Now, it's important to note that this is basically a tentative start date. Obviously, with everything that's going on in the world right now, no one really knows what's going to happen at the end of May, let alone what the world's going to look like in October. So it is a tentative start date. In terms of leagues preparing, I think every league's going to have a contingency plan now. I don't think you've seen the Elite League. It's hoping to start the Magic 5 weekend in early October, so we won't be seeing any hockey in August. We might see some preseason. That's another thought, actually. That's another topic for another day. What is preseason for the upcoming season actually going to look like? But yeah, looking at this format, it's not ideal. I'm sure that the league and the teams would prefer to do the group stage. But with everything that's going on, it's probably the best way of dealing with it right now. Because, like I said, we don't know what the world's going to look like. It's very unlikely. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know, but it's very unlikely this happens. We may even see that everything just starts dying down right now, and then suddenly, by August they go, actually, no, we could actually do this now. But I think this gives teams time to prepare, gives teams something to work towards as a tentative start date, and then, you can't push everything back by a month and run a normal tournament, because the CHL knows that the league campaigns are the priority for these teams. So they're going to be going in thinking, you know what, we need to get the league campaign going. If they're going to put the CHL back a month, we can't commit to a group stage. We have to have just a small number of games, just get it all done in the normal time frame. Because what they're doing right now is like, I'm assuming anyway, they're keeping the normal playing dates for the knockout round that they were going to use anyway, which means that basically you're going to have no leagues really going to be impacted because the teams that are entered it will go into their fixture meetings knowing we need to keep this date free just in case we get that far. But yeah, so it's not an ideal way of running it, but it is basically the way to run it right now. It'll be interesting to see what happens in other sports, the Champions League, Europa League, for example, in football, see if they adopt something similar for next season. Who knows, really? It could be a bit of a negative from a financial standpoint for teams, but I suppose the glass half full way of looking at it is you're losing 2 games of home revenue, but you've still got 1 game of home revenue that you wouldn't have got if you weren't in the CHL. So there is that way of looking at it. It could impact some of the smaller teams, but at the same time, I don't think any team's really going to be game planning to go, well, we need that revenue. It would be nice for smaller teams to have, like teams from France, UK, to be able to have that going into the season to right, okay, we're going to get probably around X amount for this game. Suddenly that's gone. But no, I think that it is the right way of going about it. I'll go a bit more into it soon. I did put out on Twitter asking for a few of your opinions and a few of your questions as well. So we'll go into that now, actually. So before we go any further, questions we had. First one was from Stephen Turton. Stephen, by the way, writes for us with Chasing the Puck. Did a lot of work last year with the Nottingham Panthers, interviewing some of their players. Would highly recommend checking out if you're a Panthers fan. I'd still recommend checking out if you're not a Panthers fan. So his tweet was, how do you think the varying lockdown country-to-country conditions will affect teams preparing for the CHL? I don't think anyone really knows, if I'm completely honest. I think it's so up in the air, and this is completely uncharted territory, that I think teams and the CHL, as well as leagues around Europe, are basically having to play it by ear right now. I think pushing it back a month is the right thing to do because we can't guarantee that we'll be able to go September 3rd. And to have a provisional date and make it clear that it is a provisional date and we're not committing to it, that's the right way of going about it, because no one's really going, well, hockey's going to be back this day, because to be honest, we don't know when hockey's going to be back. I think this allows teams to prepare in a way that they can monitor restrictions from other countries, for example. Because this is the one question I have, is if one team, HC Bolzano, for example, in Italy, if Italy's lockdown restrictions are quite strict closer to the time, what does that mean for the rest of the tournament? That's 1 out of the 32 teams that are impacted by that. What does that mean for the rest of the tournament? Does it mean that whoever Bolzano play in around the 32 end up playing 2 games away from Italy? Who knows? But yeah, I think it should allow countries to be in the same position now. So instead of thinking, well, Europe is completely at different stages with their virus containment, by October through the summer, we should get a clearer picture. I think it's a bit of a difficult question because I'm not smart enough to really know exactly what's been going on in different countries. I know that some countries are having different... They're putting bans on mass gathering quite far in the future. I think I saw Belgium something into September maybe. Germany, I think, is bans on mass gatherings up to August. So I think that, right now we don't know what it's going to look like end of May, let alone October. Should be closer to normal by then. Who really knows, though? So hopefully that answered a bit of your question, Stephen. I don't actually know. Next one is from the man who's the reason why my head's the shape it is and the reason why I'm going bald. It's Big Kev, my old man. What do you think the draw format will be? Will it be 4 pots with the Devils in pot 4 being drawn against a pot 1 team, or will it be 2 pots? This is actually a really interesting question because the honest answer is I don't know. Also, I haven't asked anyone, so I might be able to find out. I don't know. Whether or not they've got it nailed down, I don't know. But here's the thing. So usually the group stage is divided into 4 pots. So you have pots 1, 2, 3, and 4, obviously. What you could do, I suppose, is combine pots 1 and 2 and combine pots 3 and 4. So you have pots 1 and 2. So you have, for example, Frölunda would be in that group. So they're drawn out against the pot 3 and 4 teams would be Frölunda v Cardiff, for example. The other alternative, which I and just go back on that. I don't know whether or not that's the way they're going to go. I personally wouldn't go that way because I think it kind of opens the door to go, oh, okay, so pot one and two teams have got, they got all but one finger on the next round. So the other alternative that I thought, if you're going to stick with the pots, is combines pot 1 and 3 and pots 2 and 4. That way, what you're doing is you're basically saying, right, okay, we might end up having a pot 1v2 matchup in the first round, which would be an exciting first round matchup. And then we might have a pot 3 and 4, which it should be a way for pot 4 teams to have more of a chance of getting into the round of 16. I think that would just add a little bit extra to it, because you could have huge contests. You could have, like, Frölunda v Luleå, and then you have Stavanger from Norway against Grenoble, for example. I don't know what the seedings are, but that's just a potential. My ideal, though, would be scrap the pots. Just, if you're drawn, every team into one hat, pick names. First matchup, Frölunda. They're the first ones out of the hat. Whoever they pick next, that's who Frölunda play. I think if they were going to go like that, they might implement some stipulations where teams from the same league can't play each other. So I don't think you'd see a Swedish matchup, Finnish matchup in the first round. I personally would just have a straight shoot at it. Just basically have it so matchup 1 would be team drawn first, team drawn second. Matchup 2 would be team drawn third, team drawn fourth. The real question for there is, how do you move on from the round of 32? Do you then just have, okay, so you were the first two teams, so your matchup 1, you were the second two teams, your matchup 2, the winner of you plays each other. I'll put a graphic on the screen if you're watching this on YouTube, so you'll be able to see the tree as such, because I'm probably not explaining this that well. But you take the four matchups, right? So matchup 1, X and Y. I'm going to run out of letters. So matchup 1, matchup 2, matchup 3, matchup 4. Matchup 1 and 2 play each other in the next round. Matchup 3 and 4, the winners of that play each other in the next round. Then the winners of that play each other in the round after that. If that's a smaller scale of it, so it basically comes down to, say, for example, who the winner of matchup 1 wins the next round. Matchup 1 goes into the final in this scenario against the winner of matchup 4, because they won their next round as well. I'll put a graphic on the screen. It'll explain it a lot better. I think that would be the best way of doing it, because I think that would be the most exciting way of doing it as well. I think if you are going to have a knockout round from the start, you want to have as much excitement as possible. You don't want to be opening yourself up for complete blowouts in the opening round. You kind of want to make sure that there is that eye-catching fixture in the first round. You want to give yourself that much scope for it, because if you have a pot 1 team against a pot 4 team, and then pot 2 against pot 3, the pot 2 and 3 are going to be the draws for the television audience. I think if you have the potential of 2 Swedish teams going against each other, that is going to be a bit more of a draw for television revenue. And I think that's one thing that leagues for next season, not just CHL, but leagues in general, they're going to try and recuperate some of the money they've lost now through television revenue. So I think from a financial point of view, that would be good. But I think from a fan experience point of view, that would be the best one to do it. Next one then, we'll go to Neil Westlake. Personally, I like the proposed CHL knockout format. As an EIHL club, we're used to every game being a Game 7 must-win game, so potentially more suited to us. Opponents, preferably not Frölunda, fancy a German team. So just to elaborate on your comment there, I think that every game being a Game 7 in the Elite League, that can span us about a lot. And it is true, because there's a lot more riding on the league title than there is for teams in Austria. They have their playoff series. Most teams in Europe have their playoff series. That's how their CHL spots actually get determined. The Elite League's the anomaly in that, where it goes to the league, the regular season winners. I don't know whether or not it would really play to the Devils' advantage next year. I think that every team, because you don't have your group stage, so you can't have your one game where you go, you know what, we don't really need to win this one, we're already through. You need to win every game. I think every team would be on a level playing field in that. Devils may be a bit more used to it, I guess, but, especially that early in the season. But, I don't know, I don't think it'd be too much of a difference in that. And fancy a German team? Same, to be honest. I think the Devils, they've not been drawn against a German team in the CHL. I think in this format, though, you kind of want to be drawn against a team you have the most chance of progressing against. If it's a group stage, it's a little bit different, because this is the other thing as well, and I'll touch on this because we got another question similar to this. You kind of, in the CHL, in a group stage, you kind of want to go up against cities that you want to go to as well. I think the general consensus around Devils fans is not Frölunda, please, because Frölunda beat them 9-2 twice last year, and they've won countless CHL titles. I think it's 4 now. Yeah, I could see it being a German team. Well, I say that as though I have any influence on it. I would be happy with the German team because that would be, a different league for the Devils to go up against. They've not played a German side yet. Belfast, they played Augsburger last year, and their fans travelled to Belfast in huge numbers and were great. They were great in a tournament as well, so that would be an interesting one to go up against. Next up, then we've got Charlie Skinner. He sent in 2 tweets, so I'll read out the first one. I think it'll make it a much more serious competition, knowing every game counts and you haven't got a group game that you could drop. I'd like someone easy so we can get through, but also somewhere there's a nice destination to watch hockey. So yeah, that's basically what I've just said in the last one. With it being a knockout straight away, every game's important in the CHL next year. So you're not going to have your teams who go, you know what, let's put our backup in, let's put our 20-year-old developing goaltender in. We need to win because the further you go, the more prize money you get. And yeah, just same again. Everyone kind of wants to have an easier first round opponent to try and get through to the round of 16, but you also kind of want to go somewhere nice. No disrespect to the teams in Belarus, but I don't know many people who go, you know what, Belarus is on my bucket list. I'd love to go to Belarus. You kind of want to go to like Berlin. You want to go to Munich. You want to go to the well-known cities. So you do kind of want that aspect of it because you think, right, we'll play in Eisbär in Berlin. We'll fly into Berlin 3 days before the tournament. We'll go to the Berlin Wall. We'll go to this. We'll go to that. We'll have a great time in Berlin, and then we'll end it by watching our team in the CHL. That's one aspect of it, and that's one thing I actually do really like about it as well, though, because I think that there are some really, really great European destinations. And what I said about Belarus as well, I may be proven wrong. If I ever went to Belarus, I might fall in love with it. I've never been. I don't know anything about it other than the capital's Minsk, I think. But yeah. His second tweet then was, my worry is that we might end up in a situation where not all CHL countries have loosened up their restrictions. Interested in what the league response would be. Yeah, so I basically mentioned that earlier. It is going to be interesting to keep an eye on it, and I think that the league they are paying attention to what's going on. So I think they're going to be monitoring it very, very closely. They're probably having constant meetings about what they're going to do for next season. I would imagine if we got to about August and things weren't looking any clearer, then we'd have a bit of an update on what's actually going to happen. Yeah, it is going to be interesting because I may have missed this, but if you look at the Continental Cup, for example, I haven't seen any news about that. Admittedly, I haven't really looked that much, but whenever I haven't really seen any sort of update on it. The Elite League haven't confirmed who would be representing them in that competition, whether it's even going ahead. Yeah, so I don't think the CHL is going to be cancelled because hopefully by then things are as close to normal as they can be. But I think if it came down to it, say for example we got to August, September, and there's 3 countries who still, their travel restrictions mean that it's not going to be able to be possible in October, I think the CHL would leave it as late as possible to cancel the entire season, same as how the World Championships did. Yeah, that is going to be something to keep an eye on over the next little while. Last one then we had from Kath. So the new format, be weird, but it is what it is in these times, subject to going ahead, of course. As for who I'd want to play against, anyone but Frölunda, although it is going to be good going up against the best in Europe. Yeah, I don't think any Devils fan wants to play Frölunda. I don't think any Devils fan really wants a Swedish team right now, or a Finnish team, I guess. I think you kind of want to. I think you would want to go with my idea of just every team has a chance of playing each other in the first round, and you hope that you get one of the pot 4 guys. But yeah, so I think that, like the comment there, it's good to be going up against the best in Europe. That's what I like about the CHL. I make no means that, yeah, I might have a bit of bias because I work with them, but I do love the tournament. It's something that I've loved before the Devils even got involved with. I remember that season, it was when Sheffield finished top and Braehead, as they were then known, finished second, and there was about 3 points between first and third. Going into that last day, the Devils had a chance of winning the league, but I remember thinking, Sheffield, they've got this, they'll win their game, they'll win the league. All I wanted, because I knew that the league was really, really inevitably not going to happen, all I wanted was Braehead drop points so the Devils can take your CHL spot, because I really want the CHL. Didn't get it, but since they got it, they've held on to it. So yeah, it is a fantastic tournament. I think it means a lot more in the early stages to the lower end teams than it does in the knockout rounds. But once it gets into the knockout rounds, it is a very very exciting tournament for every team. It's an exciting tournament from the start, in my eyes, anyway. But yeah, so basically that is it for the CHL talk. So, like I said, I put the graphic up earlier. That would be my idea of how to do it. Round of 13, everyone plays each other. I just out of curiosity, I found a website earlier on where you basically just enter names, pick how many, and you just come up with a knockout tournament style tree. It means nothing because it is just a simulation. First time I did that under that format, they got the Stavanger Oilers, so that would be potentially two pot four teams. Second time I did it, they got Luleå from Sweden. So, yeah, that would be a bit of a difficult task to get through. So yeah, that, like I said, we'll wrap it up for the Champions Hockey League talk. There's been a rumour, so obviously we are going to have to discuss it. Certain Devils player maybe on the move. We covered this on Champions Chasing the Puck after the report. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Krona.at. A website in Austria reported that apparently the Graz 99ers are interested, or Google Translate's not that great, or have spoken to, I don't know, Ben Bowns. Now, it's not the first time that Ben Bowns has been rumoured to be leaving the Cardiff Devils, and I personally don't think it'll be the last if he does remain with the team for next year. Looking at the rumour last year, so we know that there was an offer. I heard that the offer was Denmark. I don't know for definite, though. But the rumour was Denmark. This rumour is Graz 99ers in Austria. I'm inclined to believe this rumour a lot more than I am for Denmark, purely because, for me, moving to Denmark, as much as it is a good league, and there are some great teams in that league, at most, it's a slight step up. I would argue, and it all comes down to a matter of opinion as well, in terms of the leagues themselves. If you look online, you'll find people who've ranked leagues. Denmark is usually ranked, well, Denmark is always ranked higher than the Elite League. But the way that the Elite League is growing, if it hasn't already, it is on its way to overtaking Denmark. So if you've got an option to go to Denmark or stay home as a Brit, I probably would stay home. But then again, I don't play, so I don't know. But going to Austria, going to the ABAL, going to the Graz 99ers, who are an up-and-coming team in that league as well, that is a good offer. Obviously, the Devils beat them twice in the CHL last year. So they had the shootout win at home, and then they had the away win, which, all credit to the Devils' offense. 5-2, I think the final score was. Bowns stopped 41 shots that game. So clearly he would have impressed them. Whether or not it's enough for them to make him an offer, I don't know. It is hard to get a clear picture on the entire situation because, like I said, Google Translate's not great. From what I gathered, it looks as though Christopher Nilstorp, who was their goalie last year, is on his way out after 1 year. 36 years old as well, so who knows whether or not he's going to be moving on or retiring. They also had Thomas Hernickel, I think is how you pronounce his name, who's been there for a couple of years now, mostly in a backup scenario. I don't know whether or not he's back, because as far as I'm aware, the 99ers haven't actually announced who is their goaltending tandem or any of their goalies for next year. I think Bowns and Hernickel would be a good combination, because I think it would mean that Hernickel gets a few more starts. I think he started 16 games maybe last year. Bowns obviously has a high workload. This is the other thing as well. We'll get into this part now. If he goes, it means that he's probably going to get less game time. Which sounds bad, but is it? You have GB's number one goalie playing that often. He's going to show fatigue eventually. He's not Iron Man or a superhero or anything. There is always the risk of injury, which to the national team would be devastating. Jackson Whistle, when he's played for GB, has been solid. When he came in during I think it was the USA game. I think it was USA last World Championships. He pulled off some pretty big saves, and he did well for himself. But Whistle, that's another one. You had a year being a backup as a Brit. Kind of need your backup Brit for GB to be a starting Brit in league. So that's another conversation for another day. But I think that if he goes to Austria, he has a slightly lower workload, maybe splits the starts down the middle. That would probably be a good thing for the national team. Might not necessarily be the best thing for Bowns himself. He is a very competitive guy. He wants to be out there. He wants to play all those games, is what everyone says, and I believe it's true. So I think that it is going to be. It's got the potential to be a good move for the national team. Now, for me, the reason why I believe this rumor more than I believe that he was going to go to Denmark is the fact that that league is a lot better in some aspects. You look at Salzburg, for example. They are one of the best teams in that league. They are a fantastic organization from top to bottom. They do great stuff. They would be one of the teams that are considered the top teams in that league. Graz, over the years, you would probably still consider them to be a mid-table team, but they are on the rise. It was only a couple of years ago they finished 12th out of 12. But, they finished second last year, fifth this year. They seem to have a core group of guys who are coming in and, they're on the rise. So that would be a good team for Bowns to go to. Because my understanding, and from what I've spoken to a few players, I've spoken to a few, people who are a lot more clued up about this than me. What they tend to think is that league, the top teams in our league would compete with the mid-table teams in that league. It would be a difficult task for them, but they could compete with them. So I think that it is enough of a step up that if he goes to a team that you could consider to be a mid-table team in that league, he's going to be playing the Salzburg, he's going to be playing Vienna, he's going to be playing some of the top teams, Klagenfurt as well. They're going to be presenting him with enough of a challenge that he wouldn't consistently get in Denmark, I don't think. Like I said, Denmark does have some really good teams though, so I don't want to bash on their league, but I think that going to Austria would make a lot more sense to him. Now, the article itself, it is difficult because I don't speak German. Google Translate isn't my best friend. Sometimes it comes up with really, really weird potential translations, but it seems as though there is interest, potential conversation that has been had or is going to happen between the two. It is all down to Bowns. Bowns, he's got his future in his own hands. He knows what he wants to do. Clearly, from what I spoke to him, because I interviewed him for the CHL, and I think we spoke about it, and he's also spoken to Devils TV about it, saying that he wants to go, and the Devils they've made it very clear that they won't hold him back. If he wants to go and the offer comes and he wants to take it, the Devils won't hold him back. So it is all down to him whether or not the offer's the right one. And I think that's the most important thing for him. That's why I didn't think Denmark would happen, because I didn't think it was the right offer. It is starting to get to a point now where you think it is now or never. I think the one thing that surprised people about this is it came out of the blue. Because there was no World Championships, there was nothing to overhype him on. And go, oh, okay, he did great in the World Championships. Again, there are going to be offers coming in. And then you see a room go, yeah, we expect that. This was just out of the blue. Which is also kind of one of the reasons why I think it may have some legs to it. Whether or not it is Graz, I don't know. I can certainly see a team in that league being interested in him, though. The one thing to bear in mind as well is we're 6 years in to Ben Bowns being a Devils goalie, which means we're 6 years into the new ownership group. That means there are going to be some players from that first year who they're nearing their time to move on. Whether or not it's because they want to retire, whether or not it's because they want to go somewhere else to finish up their career, who knows? We've already seen Andrew Hotham's retired, Jake Morissette's retired, Sean Bentavodio's recently retired as well. It is getting to a point now where the Devils are going to have to start thinking about life without Bowns, life without Joey Martin, life even without Andrew Lord. That's another one as well. There is that window of opportunity for him to seek employment elsewhere if he wants to. So it is getting to a point now with the Devils that we are nearing a couple of transitional years. So I think that Bowns, I'm not saying it'll be a domino effect. If Bowns goes, suddenly everyone will go in the next couple of weeks or next year. But there is going to be that effect where there are a few players who end up moving on. Yeah, so that's basically the rumour. So hopefully I've dissected that enough and not added the same thing to the conversation. The next conversation to have, and I've seen it happening already, is if Bowns goes, who comes in? Jackson Whistle is a name that I've heard for so long is apparently coming to the Devils next year. I heard that rumour, I think the first time I heard that rumour was November last year. I think a lot of fans just think that is going to happen because I think the thought process behind it is Murdy hasn't played that much and he's the equipment manager, so maybe he wants to just be the equipment manager now, which means we need a new British backup. Oh, Jackson Whistle, because he's been a backup in Nottingham. I think for Jackson Whistle, he kind of needs to go and be a starter somewhere. Whether or not he wants to come and be a backup in Cardiff, I wouldn't say no. I just wouldn't have him as a starter in Cardiff. That's just the way I think about it. I think, he's proven with Belfast and Sheffield that he has really good ability and really good potential, but I think I would prefer him to go and get a starting job somewhere else rather than be the next starting Devils goalie. I'd be happy for him to split the workload similar to how he has with Kevin Carr and more of a backup, but getting some game time role. But yeah, I don't think Whistle's the next starting goalie for the Devils. Now, there's the reason it's difficult. I would, the more I think about it, I think Whistle as a backup would be a good idea because to me, Jordan Lorde isn't ready yet. He needs a couple more years down in the NIHL. Tyler Pear as well, still very young. Ben Scanlon, still very young. These are all guys who have trained with the Devils. Lorde was on the two-way deal. Pear and Scanlon are backed up for the Devils as well. So I think that those are three goalies to keep an eye on for the future, but they are the future. So I think Whistle as the backup makes sense because when you look at Brits around the country right now, Sam Gospel, 26 years old, I imagine he's going to stay in the NIHL and also stay on the Panthers books, maybe. And then Jordan Headley, he's not going to leave Coventry. I think he's got a good deal going on there. So I think Whistle's probably the next one. So yeah, the more I think about it, the more I like Whistle coming in, just not as a starter. So if he's not going to be the starter, if he's not going to come in and be the starter and Bounce does go to Graz or go somewhere else, how long until the Danny Taylor to Cardiff rumour starts? We heard that a lot last year with him going to Nottingham. He ended up in Minsk, KHL. So, he would be a good goalie to come in. I just don't know whether or not he'd want to. So, that's the thing. When it comes to goalies, it's very, very difficult to look around the market and predict because you could just scour elite prospects and go, oh, well, Zach Fucali's being released by Red Bull Munich. Yeah, but Zach Fucali is also 24 years old and only a few years ago was a second-round draft pick. He's still got potential. He'll either be going back to the AHL or ECHL maybe, or he'll be popping up in Sweden, Finland, or back in Germany. Zach Fucali will not be one. You can look at every team league and go, well, this goalie's been let go by this ECHL team, this goalie's been let go by this AHL team. They're the next ones. I would prefer, my honest opinion, if Bouncer is going to go and they're going to bring in a new import goalie, I'd prefer it to be someone new to the league. A lot of people are going to say that, we should get CJ Mott. I wouldn't be surprised if he's already signed in Coventry, because, to be honest, Coventry, I know they've only got the one signing right now, but from what I've heard, apparently it's first of a few that they're re-signing. I think CJ Mott would do well to stay there because I think that Danny Stewart, he's onto a good thing in Coventry. They're going to be a real interesting team for the next couple of years. Matt Ginn as well, the rumours of him to Sheffield. Kevin Carr from Nottingham. I would just prefer that the Devils go out and find their own gem because every year there are new goaltenders to the league who end up being absolute gems. Patrick Killeen was that in Milton Keynes. Maybe not so much in Glasgow, but in Milton Keynes, he was an absolute stud. So I think that the Devils would probably want to go out and do that, and I think they've got the connections to find the right guy if it is time for Bowns to move on. I think the one thing as well, just to touch on, is the rumours of him leaving is obviously going to get everyone talking on social media. And in terms of Devils fans, what's been really good to see is, I'm sure there has been some that have had negative things to say, but I think a lot of it is just being a case of, you know what, good on you. If you're going to go, good on you. Thank you for what you've done. There's been a lot of positivity. Personally, if he goes, it will be sad. I'll wish him well. I'll support him the entire way. But yeah, so bit of a weird episode to record, especially considering I filmed this one. Again, apologies for the hat. My hair is a state, and I haven't shaved it because I don't want to lose it completely yet. But thank you very much for watching, or thank you very much for listening, whichever you did for this episode. I've got a bit of that motivation back to get some of these done, so I am going to try and get some interviews over the next couple of weeks. There is a new podcast as well coming out soon, I think. I don't actually know when, that I am featured on with a few of, if you saw the tweet, you'll know, with a few of my Sound TV colleagues. So keep an eye out for that. I will drop a new episode when I can. Probably be, to be honest, there's not that much hockey to talk about, unless you're going to, unless Belarus is still doing their thing. I don't know. I don't think they are. I think Name and Grotno, they would carry on going. I think they 23 players in their system got coronavirus. That's just going to wrap things up for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. And I will catch you all again in probably the next 2-3 weeks.